Welcome back to Love of One Healing and Transformation. In today's episode, Healing Through Your Energy is about unlocking the power within yourself. Energy healing isn't just about receiving, it's about shifting and working with your own energy. I'm joined today by my dearest friend Ash from Love Shine Intuition, a Reiki master, crystal energy guide, and a crystalline soul healing practitioner. She shares powerful tools and insights to help you connect with your energy in a whole new way. So let's dive in. Welcome to another episode of Love of One, Healing and Transformation, where we talk about all things modalities of how to find ourselves within ourselves and bring ourselves back to love of our self in our heart, in our daily routines, and all those things, and back to who we are as a soul. Today, I have to say, Ash is one of my absolute favorite people, humans, that is in my life, and I'm so glad that you're here today. Miss Ash is she's very gifted. She is, to me, in my words, I would believe she's her own modality. She takes a lot of different things that she's certified in and her gifts she brought here, and she puts them into such a beautiful container. It holds such beautiful space to really help others heal. So she doesn't really like the word healing, but she guides. And she guides you to heal yourself with the things that you are capable of doing, with your own gifts and your own stories and your own emotions. And she guides you in how to release those, and move through them and pass them for yourself. She is a Reiki master. She is a certified crystal energy guide. We've worked with crystals, so we're going to talk a little bit about that today. I'm excited. I brought some. And then recently, she got certified in the Crystalline Soul Healing from the renowned J.B. Price, which we'll get into too. And then I want to talk with her a little bit about how she molds these all together. So background for you, I first started seeing Ash for Reiki back in, I don't know, early 23, like January 23, I want to say. Or 24. I don't know. Time, it's irrelevant.
I believe it was 2023.
Yeah, 2023. Yeah. And my experience was phenomenal. I've had Reiki in the past, but it was more for helping me heal through my mother's passing and the grief that I had with that. This time it was a little different, and it was way more dynamic. And Ash and I connected on a soul level so quickly, so deeply. And it just catapulted from there. So Ash, enough about how awesome you are in my eyes. Why don't you explain and tell people about how you started down this journey and what you're doing right now, and we'll go from there.
Well, first off, thank you again for having me on. I'm so delighted to be here.
Of course.
Well, I would say I had a religious upbringing.
Mm-hmm.
And given my diverging identities, I found in my early teens that I was ready to move out of that. And so I took a step away from all things spiritual and religion-based.
Uh-huh.
And it wasn't until, I guess it would have been about 2011 or so, 2012. I was in college, and I had a roommate who was very interested in astrology. And she kind of brought me in to that world. And then I had another friend who was very interested in oracle cards.
Oh.
So I started playing around with oracle cards, and then I started listening to Hay House radio at the time.
Uh-huh.
And just sort of allowing myself to play and explore and just allow my curiosity to lead.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah. Then over the years, I just kept up with my practice, deepening it and keeping it more private.
Uh-huh.
And, I have a theater background as well. So I was acting, directing, performing a lot. And it wasn't until the pandemic where everything obviously slowed down.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. And that just gave me the opportunity to really question everything that I was doing.
Yeah.
And it lined up right with my Saturn return.
Uh-huh.
So, of course,
Yeah.
everything sort of was that tower moment of like, what am I really here for? What am I ready to move into? And so, yeah,
Wow.
it's, yeah.
Wow. What a journey. So when did you start? Like 2011, did you say? Is that when you really started into this journey of saying, you know what, I think I'm going to open my own practice and venture down this road? Is that when it really came to fruition for you?
I didn't really think about opening my own practice until the pandemic.
Yeah.
I was fully set on being in theater, directing shows, which I still have a passion for.
Yeah.
Um, but taking that time away really allowed me to see that I wanted to give back in a different way or allow source to speak through me in a different way.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Huh. What did you start first? Was it the crystal energy, and working with the beautiful crystals and rocks? Was it the Reiki? What? I'm always curious when people start doing, practitioners start going down the road of what they're offering and service, of what was that first moment you're like, this is what I'm going to start with, especially for you, because you do a multitude of things that you offer with your gifts. So what was the first one that you're like, oh, maybe this was it?
I was kind of looking for a class to take or something to sort of jumpstart a new learning process. And then I actually had a friend at the time who just received her Reiki mastery. And it sort of aligned perfectly in that that teacher was going to start a level 1 class.
Uh-huh.
And I just jumped right in. I felt more so just called to do it. I didn't really give it a lot of premeditative thought beforehand. It just sort of allowed myself to be drawn to it. And I just completed all 3 levels back to back. And that's where I started.
Huh, with Reiki. That's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
were you a receiver of Reiki yourself to know how that felt in your own body and your own aura and your own energy fields before you were like, oh yeah, I think I'm gonna, is that, because I always wonder, like, Akashic records. When I first had my first Akashic record, I think, oh, that would be so awesome to learn how to do that myself. Like, did you have that moment with yourself with that practice?
Back in high school, I had a friend, like my best friend. She and her mom were certified. And so they were Reikiing on the food that we ate and like often would Reiki me. Like
Uh,
it just was sort of common
oh,
during that time in my life.
huh,
And I became fascinated, but I didn't really at the time even think like this is something that I want to do
uh-huh,
or something that I want to study.
uh-huh.
So it just was something that I enjoyed.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So for the listeners that haven't been down this road, and I know Reiki is kind of one of those popular modalities that you kind of hear of, but there's still some people that don't know, especially those that are still waking up and being called to find things about it, like listen to this podcast episode, for example, right? So can you explain to our listeners what Reiki really is and what it does for people and how they can utilize it to help themselves on their path?
Certainly.
Okay.
Um, to keep it really simple, Reiki is essentially universal life force energy. And that's something we all have access to at all times. Reiki is just a vehicle or a way to access that in a specific modality.
Right.
Yeah. And with Reiki, it's often done hands on the body, but you can also do it hands off the body in a one-on-one session. It also works distance. So I work with clients over Zoom as well. Um, but in terms of people using it on themselves, you really don't need a certification to do that. You can teach yourself and learn the hand positions and then work with your own energy, channeling and feeling from your hands into your body or around your chakras,
Yeah.
uh, where the energy is going and where it's needed.
Very nice. Okay. Um, when I come and see you, We they're really powerful sessions. Um, but you also utilize light language, and I know on a different episode we talked about light language, and your light language is different. And I still today have not heard a light language close to yours, which fascinates me. And it's really beautiful. Do you find that using light language with Reiki makes it that much more powerful, or is there a difference? Or do you feel compelled to use light language with Reiki, which is different than some other Reiki practitioners, right, that don't speak like light language yet, and work that into their practice? How do you feel like that might, make it better, or I don't know. Help me with the words here. How would it, does it amplify it?
You know, those are great questions. I would have to say I am just as curious as you. I think for me, when I go into light language channeling or light codes channeling, if some people are more familiar with that, or quantum sound technology, those are all interchangeable. Um, I find that it sort of neutralizes my mental chatter because oftentimes, you know, I have a pretty busy mind. And so during a session in a quiet space, I'm getting a lot of downloaded information, but I also have that linear thinking mind, my human mind. And so I find when I'm channeling that human mind, the judgment, the
Yes.
perceiver,
Ego. Yeah.
the ego, yeah, it sort of quiets down. And so I'm receiving both the light language, which I'm not hearing before saying, it just sort of flows through. And then I'm able to really hone in on, what is the body saying, or what are their guides and my guides saying, about the process that's taking place, the healing that's taking place.
Yeah. Do you find that people emotionally release during these practices too? Or is it, mostly just a physical release? Is it both? What can people expect when they get a Reiki session, specifically too with light language?
I think, yes, all of that.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, in their earlier sessions, if they're more skeptical or unaware, they may notice more of the physical um, releases or healings, if you will, that take place. But some people come in and they're super open and they have an emotional release or they have a shift in their perception. And for me, that's really exciting to watch,
Yeah.
especially over the course of many sessions, because there can be a new way that a client relates with their own belief systems that can really open up and shift their perspective.
Yeah, that makes sense. What do you find that people are coming to see you for the most? Is there a trend that you see when people come to see you, or is it all over the board?
It is really all over the map, I'd say. I think people generally do have at least one physical thing that they're working through, but oftentimes that physical sensation is related to an emotional or belief pattern.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah,
so
that makes
it's
sense.
expressing, yes.
Yeah, because we hold emotions and energy in our bodies, and so it creates a discomfort or sometimes disease. And until we approach that emotion and release it, we're still going to have that discomfort, right? Um,
Yeah.
Will you also incorporate crystals? So I'm wondering if you can enlighten us a little bit of how utilizing the power of crystals with Reiki, or even just by themselves, also assists people in finding some comfort or emotional release, or is that even a thing with crystals, helping with emotional release?
It is. It is. You know, each crystal can serve as a resonator, right? Um, Crystals hold frequency, and our bodies also hold and emit frequency. And so, similar to like a singing bowl,
Yeah,
when you're using a singing bowl, it's obviously emitting a sound that then can attune to, well, your chakras or your energy field is attuning to that bowl or that sound. And so crystals work very similarly in that way.
Mhm.
So it doesn't have to be placed on the body, but I enjoy doing that work in my practice where I'll place crystals on and around the body wherever I feel called to do that. And then I noticed a shift, sort of this perception that I have
Uh-huh.
outside of it's a knowing.
Yeah.
And so it's very cool to sort of integrate that to
Yeah.
the practice.
What crystals do you use the most? Which ones are the most popular and the most powerful? So let's say, Ash, if I were to buy crystals, 'cause I have a ton of them, but if I were to buy crystals and start down my journey of utilizing them and incorporating them into my life, which top two, three, five, you tell me, should I seek to work with first?
Hmm. Well, clear quartz is a beautiful amplifier.
Okay.
Um, so if you're looking to amplify an energy, clear quartz is where I would turn. Um, Also, I think selenite is very important, or some sort of cleansing crystal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can cleanse objects and crystals in the moonlight, but that's not always possible given people's location. But
So it's
selenite
too
can be
cloudy.
really,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So, uh, you can use selenite to cleanse. And then, gosh, I would also recommend having something like a tourmaline, a black crystal that can help to neutralize or clear a space. I like to place tourmaline around my home so that it sort of cleanses the energy as people come through.
Yeah, that's a good
It's
idea.
helpful.
How do they work with crystals though? Do they just say, I have some crystals here? Do they just grab the crystal and be like, you, you're gonna amplify me today? Is that one way that people can do that? Or, is there like some little ceremony that they do with the crystal to have it connect to themselves so that they're personally working with that energy and creating a relationship, right? Because everything is consciousness and crystals are no different, right? So is there like, yeah, is there a ceremony that someone could do or I don't know, a chant or, you know?
I think all of the above. Yeah, what you said was beautiful. Yeah, I think whatever you feel called to do is going to be, what's right for you. There's not really a wrong way.
Yeah.
But some recommendations might be, if you're just getting started with crystal work, this is labradorite. I love to just sit with the stone quietly,
Yeah.
in meditation or in quiet contemplation,
Uh-huh.
and just allow the stone to speak to you. They all have different resonance, even if it's the same, you might have two rose quarks, but they have a little bit of a different story to tell,
Uh-huh.
right? They have different, I kind of look at them like they have personality.
Right. And depending on where they were dug up or found or the different locations of the world, they have different, yeah, they hold vibration, but they hold memory, like water.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's so many colors too. Would you say that each color represents a chakra? That's how you would use it for those that might have that question?
I think as a general rule, yes. However, sometimes things sort of come up outside of that general knowledge, right? Like sometimes I might feel called to place a red stone somewhere else on the body and not just using that for the root chakra, for example.
Oh.
Um, it really is client specific, but I think for someone who's just entering this world, I think, yeah, if you were able to get a collection, to represent the chakra system, go for it. And maybe try, like, do a meditation with each stone and just holding it or placing it on the chakra that it corresponds to and just see how that affects you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good point. Yeah. Okay. Everybody, try some crystals.
Go play. Go play.
Play. Roll of the rocks. Yeah. Yeah, I love them. My kids love them too. I also incorporate them in my family. And we take little trips to the crystal shops and let them pick out what resonates. And sure enough, the ones that they resonate with that day is something that I see in their fields or in their energy of late that makes total sense that they would be going to, turquoise, or they would be going to citron, so that makes sense. Do you find that you use them all the time in your Reiki, or is there points that I guess it depends on the person that you just don't always use them at all?
I think my practice has evolved.
Uh-huh.
Originally I was very, I don't want to say dependent, but I used them regularly through each session.
Uh-huh.
And as time has gone on, and I've seen that like sometimes that is required for a client, and other times other modalities are going to serve them better, and they maybe just need one crystal, or I'll use, a selenite wand over them, but I won't necessarily place any other crystals on them. It all just sort of flows differently.
Feels differently. Speaking of crystals, you recently got certified in Crystalline Soul Healing through the renowned Jamie Price. And for those listeners who may not know, Jamie Price has been doing beautiful work for many years. I think we mentioned her actually in our episode 2 of Light Language, because she speaks light language. She writes books about it. Ash and I know, have an oracle deck of hers, and it's light language. It's beautiful. And she does this crystalline, which she works with. Well, I'll let Ash tell you what it's all about, because she knows way more than I. I will tell you that I experienced it with Ash, and it was unbelievable. So, yeah, it had immediate results for me with the one thing that I went for. So it was crazy.
Yeah. Yes. This is an ancient Lyran technology that Jamie Price that was channeled through Jamie Price. And essentially, to put it as simply as possible, it works like a computer software program, and it's sort of integrating this template that does like a check through your belief systems, your traumas. Like there's a whole system that it checks. And every time we run the template with a specific intention, whatever is ready to be released within accordance to your higher self sort of falls away, and it leads to your greater empowerment. And it's working with the DNA system. So yeah, it's a really beautiful modality.
How does it work with your DNA system?
It's speaking to your DNA, and it's essentially reprogramming it.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah.
What do people usually utilize it for? Anything just like Reiki, or just like, I don't know, yoga, meditation. Do they come in for a particular purpose? Usually, or is it just anything? What do you find?
I mean, it really can be anything. I think what's unique about this modality in is that it is a passive modality. So unlike Reiki, for example, the practitioner is, actively doing work.
Uh-huh.
The template can run in the background. So it's really beautiful to pair with these other modalities. So how I would use it with a client is they come into my practice and they may have something that they're consciously working through. They want to resolve maybe a relationship with their boss, for example. So we could set the template to run to resolve or to help flow new energy into that relationship, whatever we sort of positively intend for. And so then the template will run and it will clear or work through that intention, but it will also check through all these other systems that are set in this program.
Yeah. And then I think that you said at one point during mine, I didn't need it, but some do. And maybe depending on what your intention is, you may need to have it run, like it runs on its own. Is that right? Like, so for example, I came in for a session and I laid down for mine, and then we didn't say anything. It was a very quiet session, which was nice. But I could feel and I could see, my experience only that I know of. I could see like this, it almost was like a laser, like, scanning my body, right? And I could feel the energy though. I could feel the energy kind of roll down, just kind of like shoo over my body. And then it like came back up, and then I could see and hear things that it was touching on for my session. And I thought that was amazing. And but then I remember having this conversation with you after that you said that depending on what your intention is and what we're doing, that you may have to come back to reset the template or keep the template going or reactivate it, or you could do it to where it reactivates itself on its own with you like a week later. Or can you explain something like that?
Yeah, certainly. Um, you can program a template to run periodically,
Oh,
which is something we learned like later on in our training. Um, so let's go back to the relationship with the boss example.
yeah.
So maybe you have weekly meetings with this boss. So you want the template to run during those meetings. And so we can set it to run like maybe every week, every Wednesday, let's say at 10 a.m. for half an hour.
Oh,
And then it just kind of cushions that experience um, for the client and for the people involved in that meeting.
wow.
So that's how you would program it to run. But in terms of it working in the moment and then not working, it does continue to run. So, you as a client may have the experience in a session for a half an hour, but you'll still feel those effects and things will still continue to shift after that session.
And
As you,
how long do they usually shift for
it really
until it
depends
brings in
on.
what your intention was wanting to bring in or bring forth?
Maybe a better way to look at it would be that it's initiating
Okay.
a healing process. And so whatever is allowed into your experience, um, that will sort of determine how things play out over time.
Wow, that's amazing. And just so the listeners know, I didn't do much. I came with an intention of why I came and what we can work through. A session with Ash is amazing because she's a little bit of everything. Her container is amazing, like Ash, you really do. So when you come in to see Ash,
Like,
just let me walk you through like my experience with my sessions with her. You come in, we talk about my intentions, and even if I didn't really know what my intention was, what's beautiful about Ash too is that she kind of she's almost like a psychologist. She talks you through like how's your day, how's your week. We go through it, and her energy is so relaxed and so expansive, and so at the end, before we even get started on this session itself, like I might be in the session, but before we get started, like me laying down and her doing her work, she's really helping you identify and hone in specifically what your intention is. So she's holding that space in such a tight, powerful, amplified way that when you get on the table for Reiki or for Crystalline Soul Healing or whatever she decides that you need in that moment, you're so relaxed and it's so powerful that you walk out like I walk out every time like, wow, it's a lot to unpack. I really have to like sit down and drink a lot of water. but um, so so Ash, is this typical? Kind of like how all your sessions go, that they come in and then once you talk through it, you're like, okay, I think we're gonna do now that you have in your toolbox the crystalline method. Now do you sit and think, well, I'm gonna incorporate this and this, but I don't need that today with this person, knowing what I need to hold space for? Because you're a little different than a lot of other practitioners that I've run into, where you have all these tools now that you can weave it in and out of someone's session. How do you determine which tools you're pulling out of your toolbox? Because she's also an intuitive. So,
thank you. I really allow myself to be an open channel for whatever work is coming through. Um, Sometimes I go in with an idea, like if I know the client and we've been working on something, and I want to ask them, how's this going? How's this healing process working through right now? To check in. But really, I leave it as open ended as I can because I don't really claim to know more than our guides, source working through us.
yeah.
Um, so yeah,
Oh,
it's different for every client. Some clients, they don't necessarily want to have a big conversation at the beginning of their session. They're just ready to get on the table and relax and
Yeah.
meditate, zone out. And
Yeah.
so those sessions are different.
Oh, that's interesting. I also noticed a big, huge stack of beautiful oracle decks behind you. How do you incorporate those into your sessions with people?
No, I love, I mean, as we said before, like this is my kind of first real dive into new age spirituality.
Uh-huh.
So I like to use cards to sort of open the energy flow.
Uh-huh.
Sometimes I pull cards before my clients come in just to sort of get an idea of like what, how can I best serve
Yeah.
in the situation, or what are they working through? And other times I wait till the client's in front of me and then we pull cards together. It's especially fun to do that after we've had a little bit of a dialogue. I sort of come in sort of looking for that intention work,
Yeah.
to then pull a card and see how that card sort
Plays
of
out.
parallels or reflects the intention, because I usually do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we always say, those who work with oracles, the cards never lie.
The cards never lie. It's very true.
So true. Oh my gosh. So I'm wondering, like, when people pick out a new modality to try, or a new practitioner, is there anything that they should know, like, to prepare themselves to come see you? Or, are there resources for them to dive in a little deeper on, like, Reiki or Crystalline Soul Healing? And, I know, or do you find it that people that just come see you just know that, I guess, are they open and susceptible? Do they have fear wrapped around it, nervousness? For the first time, when you see people coming to you for the first time?
I think most people are a little giddy or nervous, or they're anticipating, what is this going to be?
Yeah.
And so obviously I want to kind of create an environment that's going to allow them to feel relaxed, of course. But in terms of preparation, just come as you are. I think people are oftentimes thinking like, and I do this too. Like if I'm going to see a practitioner, I'm thinking like, well, what do I want to address today? And what is the thing? Like, what am I going to hone in on? And, I think that can be useful at times, but ultimately it's about what happens in the room and the energy that's shared there. And it's sort of, if there is a natural flow, then it evolves on its own.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. The flow is important, right? And to be open, and playing with their belief systems too, I would imagine, is key as well when they come to see you or anybody for this particular modality in sources. If I don't have the belief system that Reiki really works, then what am I doing at Reiki? But, so like, I think, when people are preparing for this, just have that belief system, you think, too. Because a lot of times I find that some people are like, well, I'm going to try because so-and-so told me to try it, but I don't know if I believe in it, but I'm going to go anyway. So
yeah, they're testing the modality or the practitioner to see how it works.
Yeah. So for those that are skeptical about it, what would you say to them to kind of, not be so skeptical about it?
I think if you have a calling, if you feel that ping,
Yeah.
then there's no real arguing with that, right? I think if we're at that point where we're just like, this is not going to work, then we wouldn't go to the session.
Yeah.
So there's a reason why you're in the room.
For people who for people who aren't ready, but are skeptical just in general about these healing modalities that you offer, Reiki, crystalline healing, what would you say to kind of ease their comfort of skepticism, to even be open to maybe going or being referred? Because I think a lot of people are just skeptical in general about energy work. But I know you do a lot of research on that.
I think skepticism is natural and in some ways healthy. I'm wary of people that come in and they're completely open and ready for everything. I think it's good to have discernment, and really say, is this for me? And we can all do energy work on ourselves as well. And maybe that's a good place to start if you are skeptical. you can work with your body as a pendulum, for example. An easy exercise to try is you might have some food in your house or you're at the grocery store and you can pick it up and you can hold it close to you. And if you find that your body is moving toward it, then that's likely something that is good for you. And if you're finding that your body is leaning away, then perhaps it's something you should avoid. And that's just like an easy way to test just your own wisdom that's within you.
Oh, that's beautiful. And that is a good point. If anyone's ever used a pendulum, uh, I think they call it divination, right? Divination tools. So if you've
Yes.
ever used a pendulum, most of the time, sometimes it's different, but most of the time, what Ash would say, moving forward is a yes. So it would be like the yes, and then back in that sense is a no. So, but you can use your body for the same thing. And Ash, would you say with anything, right? You could use your body for that. If someone says, "Oh, let's go to this party," and you're like, "Oh, let me sit in that for a second."
Yes. Yeah, put yourself there. Really like say, okay, how do I feel if I'm at this party versus how do I feel if I stay home? And we immediately get like a gut reaction, just like we do if we walk into a space, go to the DMV, you're affronted by a feeling, right? Like we have like a knowingness that happens when we walk into a new space.
Yeah.
It's there. You just often are ignoring it, right? We're entrained as a culture to quiet our innate knowing.
Yeah.
But if we really tune in and if we really slow down and listen, then we're getting hits all the time.
All the time. Yeah. Is there any other, speaking of energy work, because you do so much of it, is there anything else that people could start to utilize within themselves to trust that they too can do the energy work on themselves, or that others could also do energy work on them?
I think asking for signs is another great way to communicate with the universe.
How would you do that?
Well, for example, right before we sat down for this conversation, I looked outside and there was a hummingbird just hovering right outside my window. And so I knew, everything is going to be all right. Nature is always communicating with us. So I think if anything I could say today and stress is that go outside if you can, if weather allows, or not, or if it's cold. Go outside and put your feet in the earth. Connect with nature. Touch a tree. Nature is communicating with us all the time.
Yeah. And you can feel the energy. Like if you're barefoot, right? You can feel the energy move up through your feet and into your heart center. And especially if you're standing in the sun rays, right? And you have bare feet. Now, I tried this the other day and it was freezing cold. So I wouldn't suggest doing that. Even in the sun, I was like, oh, my feet are frozen. But, if you can stand it, yes, more power to you. But that is so, so important to our nervous system, right? So when we do that kind of stuff, and they call it earthing, our nervous system is always zinging and always stressful in our human existence. And those are some things too that we can do to work with our energy to just calm it down, right? So like if I get really stressed or I've just had a stressful phone call from my other job, I'll often go outside and put my feet on the ground for about 10 minutes and breathe. And then I feel really great. Are there other practices like that? And I think just talking about energy, because that's ultimately what you're doing, is energy work with the crystals, the templating, Reiki, light language is also moving energy. All of these modalities all stem around energy work. So, ultimately you're a very huge container for energy work, right? And so are there other things that you would suggest or that you utilize within your sessions that we haven't even touched base on to move the energy for your clients?
Something that's just coming through right now for me to say is that because we are, as a collective, moving through a pretty chaotic time,
Yes.
developing a practice for yourself is going to be increasingly important as we move forward. Um, I personally have a practice that I do every day. I meditate, I speak with my guides, I journal and pull for my oracle cards. I also get a fair amount of movement in to really regulate my body and my systems. And so I feel that that's really important to mention.
Yeah.
Um, and that's a lengthy process, and I understand that, and that's not going to work for everyone, but finding a process that is going to work for you personally, I think is profoundly important right now.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. We're definitely shifting. 2025 is going to be tough for everybody collectively. We can already see signs of that right now all over the world, actually, not just in the US and our own chaotic mess. Uh, but we're cleansing, right? Everyone is cleansing. Gaia is cleansing herself. And with cleansing is going to be chaos and messy and strong emotions and strong energy because emotions are energy, energies are emotions. So they're kind of hand in hand. They're the same thing. Um, and and so I like that you brought up like how people can help themselves in their own energy through this process. What other things do you think would be helpful? Because I know you talk a lot with me about just, you know, trying to hold some ease and grace within yourself on a daily basis and not be so hard on yourself and why not me and instead. So I know you have so many beautiful ideas wrapped around that subject. What else would you like to share with that?
Yeah. I think you bring up a really good point. I think we're all very hard on ourselves generally as humans.
Okay.
We live in a society that asks us to be a lot of the time. And really that's in some ways it's going to inhibit our growth.
Yeah.
You would never make demands, or at least I wouldn't, make huge demands of a baby that's just been born and is learning and trying to discover all that is around them, right?
Right.
So how can we come back to ourselves and look at ourselves as we would a child
Yeah.
with compassion, with grace, understanding?
Mhm.
I think being able to hold yourself in a space of compassion and say, you know what, like I'm just learning. I'm a child. This is my baby first.
Yeah.
Go around here on the planet.
Yeah. Maybe.
At least in this level of consciousness, right?
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
my first experience. This is new to me. So I'm doing the best that I can.
Yeah.
I'm just here to learn. I'm just here to learn.
Yeah. Yeah. We're all here to learn. That's the whole point of our school, right? So, and
Yeah.
we're all so hard on ourselves, but through both of us and our work, we- you know, there's no wrong answer, right? There is no wrong answer because your growth is your growth. And even if you make what you might find as the wrong choice or something that's not so awesome for the collective, it's still growth and it's still something and it's still catapulting you on a soul level, even if you don't see it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just as important as the beauty too. The dark is just as
Yeah.
beautiful as the light. Yeah.
Yeah, just look again. Look at trees. They're shaped by their environment, right?
Yeah,
Like
that's
a storm comes through, it changes the shape of the tree. We don't look at those trees and say, well, they're less beautiful because they're not perfect.
yeah,
Of course not, right?
yeah,
Every tree is different. It has its own character, and that's how we are too.
yeah, yeah. That's beautiful. Um, you know, wow. How do you continue to develop your skills to stay connected with the innovation of how we're moving through awakening and evolving into our true selves? Because that's ultimately where we're headed, right? We're headed into the all knowing of all that is ourself. How do you see you moving in that direction with your practice and your gifts that keep coming on board?
Well, I'm lucky because I am an avid learner. I'm never satisfied with knowledge. I just always want to get more in, right? I'm always taking classes. I'm always, wanting to learn more.
Yeah.
So I'm lucky in that way. So I'm actually going to be learning a new modality, if you will, again this year. So yeah, I'm excited incorporate that as time moves on. But I think overall, I would say I'm really excited about community and creating community, both in person and also online. You know, we're in the age of Aquarius. The time for technology is now.
Right.
So I think there are ways we can use that to our benefit, like we are today.
Yep.
Speaking with each other and really coming together and coming back to oneness.
Yeah. Supporting ourselves in that venture. Yeah. Ash, I love you so much. Thank you for joining me today.
I love you too.
I'm just, my life has definitely changed because Ash is in it, all for the good. And we've done some fun things together over the last couple of years, and I'm looking forward to the future too. Is there any other thing you'd like to share with our listeners before we go today?
This message that I keep getting a lot this week and in the past few weeks has been all about our beliefs.
Yeah.
I think collectively we have to get through some of these limiting beliefs that are keeping us from our true empowerment.
Yes.
We look around and we see so much duality, war consciousness. The only way to get through this period is to find compassion, both for others and for ourselves.
Yeah.
And to step into that oneness and see that we are all one.
Yeah. Yeah. That's beautiful. Thank you. Ash, how can people get a hold of you to explore all these different things and create a container for them to move through their own healing?
Visit my website. It's loveshineintuition.com and you'll find everything there.
Okay. And then Ash's bio and all her information, contact information, her Instagram handles, and that stuff will also be in the description of this episode. So go check that out to reach out to the most beautiful Ash, who's holds such beautiful space. So I hope that you are called to go and see her and book an appointment with her. Thank you so much again. And I look forward to seeing you soon for another amazing session. So I'll be on there booking shortly. So have a great day and thank you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Wow, that was such a powerful conversation with Ash. She truly holds such a unique and expansive space for transformation, and I hope that you felt that energy through this episode as well. If you're feeling called to explore Reiki, Crystalline Soul Healing, or just want to connect with Ash, you can find her at www.loveshineintuition.com. Her Instagram handle and all other details are in the episode description. As always, thank you for being here on this journey with me. If you love this episode, please share it, leave a review, and let me know your thoughts. I'll see you next time for another deep dive into healing and transformation. Until then, take care, be kind to yourself, and trust your path.